Coming up with the title here, the end. I played around with it a little bit, tried to be witty. I'm not a witty person, so just kept it pretty simple there. But this isn't just about my growth as a teacher or about just the students, but it's really about my time in academia and just really this journey that started way before I even stepped foot on this campus as a student. So, about me, but not really. So, this is going to be a little bit about myself, but it's a bigger picture here. So, to begin here, a thought, a dream, and a goal. So this began like 2006. I was a struggling student in high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Four-year college was kind of off the table, and I signed up for an early childhood education course. And I'm like the only guy in like that cohort, and everyone's like, "Yeah, we know why you really signed up." But the truth is I was interested in education, so it really gave me sort of a window as to what to expect and to do, and it kind of latched on. And I'm thinking, yeah, this might be something. So I had a little taste my senior year of student interning, and I got to go sit in the classroom, and it was like a thing. Now, I didn't have to lesson plan. I didn't have to do all of what we had to do, thankfully, because I would have bombed that miserably. But fortunately, through maturing and growth, being a little older, you pick up and you start to learn how to get things done and when to. So that was the thought. Then it became a dream, like, man, I would love to go to Tech. I would love to be a teacher, and that was just not a possibility. So I kind of did the unconventional track. I went to community college 2 years, then I transferred here, and then it was kind of like full gear. And I can remember Cam was one of the first people I met here as an undergrad, and I'm like, dude, what are we going to do? And he's like, I'm trying to become a teacher, but I don't know if I can. Like, I hear it's really tough, so I'm sitting there like, what the crap am I going to do? So. But it's kind of bittersweet to be in this with him, to see all of you guys grow through the past year. But to be able to, Greg and I think we had a couple of classes, so we didn't really get to know each other quite like we did this year. But to see y'all's faces and really achieve a goal, and that's what it became, was this goal. Like, okay, now the dream's a reality. Let's make that a goal. And so here we are. It's been sweet. It's good. So. Moving on. So why am I here? A few reasons. First, my faith is like huge. If you don't know, like, that's something that I tend to carry with me a lot, and it's a lot of why I'm here. It's what I believe in, doing this, with a purpose and with a passion. Next, my family. So my wife's here. She's good enough to support me, so I'm thankful that she's here. But just my grandparents, my parents, it took a village to raise the child, and that was my case. I grew up in, 30 minutes up the road, Roanoke, Virginia. Went to a small high school, so the community was a big aspect of my bringing up, of me developing as a person. And then my friends. And so my really good friend back there, Brooks, here as well. And so this is a picture of his family, and then some of you might recognize a couple of other faces, but while here in Blacksburg, they've just been really supportive of my journey, my life, of what I've been going through. But of course, so that's really why I'm here. But what's this all about? So it's not enough for me to just be here just for my own successes. And I tell this a lot to my students, and that's the first it's about them. It's about their development as educators, but it's also about them as individuals and them seeing their worth. It's about them seeing, empowering them with a sense of, hey, I can do this. I'm not far removed from them as just believers of, in education, and thinking, man, this really ain't for me. So I know if I can do it, anybody can really do it. So I try to empower my students with that. And then the second part there is the community. And so you can look at this on a national, global scale. You can look at it from a local scale. Here in Blacksburg, it is a really tight community, and I got to do my student teaching just, right up the road there at Blacksburg Middle, and I loved it. I know a lot of you guys said you miss it. I do. I became really close with my students. Also, my cooperating teacher, they work in teams. It's very special, and it's something that I will miss. But there's a lot for me. There's a lot of takeaways from it. So I know and I'm confident in wherever I go, I'll be able to use a lot of the things that they left me with. Okay, so becoming a suit boy. So you're probably like, how the crap do you become a suit boy? Well, when you get an image like this, and you're as zealous as I am, you're, you know, ooh, I know. So, of course, Dr. Hicks showed this in the fall, or last fall, and of course, I'm, you know, my overzealousness jumps up and says, oh, that's a soup line, right? Yeah, I know that. So, of course, Dr. Hicks, you know, he's kind of like, you know, baseball, and so, yeah, that's how you become a soup boy. And so this is actually a fact collection day in Roanoke, Virginia, circa October 1942. So I use that image with my students, though I didn't tell them, hey, this is the reason why I'm the soup boy, okay? But so we're getting into now, like, my growth as a teacher, pre-professional, an individual. So that's how you, right there, that's how you be overzealous, try to be a hero in class, and show out for all your colleagues. So the evolution of a suit boy. So, you know, now that you're a suit boy, and I had a lot of students that were suit boys, they thought they, you know, knew it all too. So, so how do you grow, okay? How do you evolve? My early field observation, I was exposed to grading and limited planning, particularly with NCSS plans. I laugh when I say grading because the first thing my cooperating teacher said, don't worry, I'm not going to make you like my grading person. You'll never do any grading. And I was just spent the whole time grading in her class. But, you know, it was a really good experience. I got to play around with assessments. I got to build some of my own in the class. At my early field observation in Roanoke County, the students are issued laptops, so a lot of their tests are taken on their computer, and it's to help get them ready for the SOL test and stuff. So I didn't have to necessarily build that particular test, but there's writing assessments, and so I got to help with that, and then even lead in some instruction. So after I finished the early field observation and moved into my student teaching, this was sort of like the bulk. This is when I could really start to see, okay, like instructional strategies and things. So the curriculum unit and map, that was the huge piece to the student teaching, and mine was on World War II, so I was blessed with a plethora of information to have to condense into a few weeks, and because of the snow and things like that, there were some issues, but my cooperating teacher was totally hands-off. She gave me a guideline, okay, let's make sure we address this, this, this. We really exceeded the SOL's expectations, and you know, I tell the students, hey, look, we're going to, you know, European theater, lots of information. We're going to try to pack it and condense it in enough essential details that you understand the figures, the important events, operations, you know, battles and so forth. I wouldn't crush them. They're 7th graders on dates and on specific things, but as long as they were understanding the bigger concepts, and that was my goal during my time there. Okay, so with that, various instructional strategies and activities. So just working through learning, you know, graphic organizers, the various SIM frames and map organizers and so forth. Moving from there, I'm having them do group work. So there was, you know, structured academic controversy, mock trial, having them work with the atomic bomb, and I'll show you some of their work here in a few. But that was kind of what this really helped me to sort of, and I'm implementing these different strategies. And I might use like a frame one day, and then the next I'm going to say, okay, let's go with the graphic organizer. So I was really able to differentiate the instruction from day to day based on how the students would react to the day before. Assess student growth, that's another huge thing. I didn't quite get to see that in the early field observation. But of course, student teaching, student growth is a big part of, you know, our growth as educators, and so being able to see the students work through these different activities and strategies, and to see how they are processing that information, and then how you're checking and things. So the use of various informal and formal assessments. I had a quiz, and then of course a unit final, and then a couple of writing assignments throughout the unit. So I got to see the students really learn, and it's really cool to see that when you go in and you're kind of like, hey, and you're like, what do you know about this? We know, and they're kind of like shaking their head at you. But then at the end, they're like, oh yeah, Operation Overlord. That's, you know, D-Day was sort of the big part of that and stuff. So to see where they were from day one to day wherever we were at the end was really cool. And then lastly, there reflections, and that's important whether it's blog or videos. Being able to reflect on the day, the week, the lesson, individual lessons, bigger ones, whether it's a curriculum unit or maybe it's a certain number of assessments and things. I really see the importance of reflecting on my work as an educator and just my development as a teacher. That's just me evolving, as the Soup Boy. Okay, so lesson plan improvements. This is where I could tangibly see myself growth as a planner here. So similar to Cam's, this was from the Comp and Content Literacy class, and this was, don't get me wrong, my first exposure to lesson planning, and of course there are differences across platforms, but to see this and to see what I do now, I'm thinking, man, I do a lot more work now. But the truth is this is a good framework, but I can definitely see where the way we frame our stuff now and the format that I use is a lot more specific. It really helps me as a teacher in class as we're going through the lesson, and then of course reviewing and planning for future. So here you see there's an essential question, enduring understanding, and the standards. The problem here though is that the process is just bullet points. Of course, I'll show you in a minute how that's structured different. There's nothing on here that shows where differentiated instruction or tailoring the lesson to students who may have IEPs or Section 504 plans. The anticipatory set hook there, of course, is the starter, and so there's a little piece on that. But outside of this was it, just 2 pages. Materials needed, the standards aren't quite as visible. You can see there's not really any guiding questions or objectives, just a literacy objective there, and so on. So this is what it looked like a year ago, okay? And then today, this is what it looks like now. So the template here has a nice, good rationale and purpose of the lesson. Okay, it also talks about the background and context, so that of course helps us as educators as we begin to go through this lesson with the students to be able to maybe clear up any misconceptions, or maybe it's review. I like to review with my students at the beginning of class the previous lesson. So in terms of this lesson here, we probably would have talked about Trans-Saharan, Silk Road, Western European, Northern European trade route. So I might review that with them at the beginning, and then we'll move on. There's key concepts now. Okay, so I can look to see, okay, explaining Christianization, explaining migration, and those other terms there. Now you see there's NCSS standards and SOL. So not only do we have the SOL standard addressed, we also have the national NCSS standard here. For this case, it was Principle 8, Science, Technology, and Society. This was the exploration, diffusion, or the, Age of Exploration lesson that we did back in the fall. Or that I did. All right, so you can see there's guiding questions. There's really good objectives there. And then there's assessments on which, to how I will assess those objectives from students. And then of course after you've got the, your materials and whatever, it's PowerPoint slides or the activity like worksheets or things like that. Okay. And then you finally hear the procedure. So you can see the modifications and accommodations for diverse learners. How will I tailor this to students who may be ESL students, who also may be, have IEPs or Section 504 plans. Okay, and then you can see where the specific objectives, and then so there's the objective there, and then there's how we're going to check for understanding and what we're going to pull from that. And then the last piece there, the closure, which was also missing from the first lesson plan. So to have that nice closure to close that out, and how we're going to draw for our check for student understanding there.